we're gonna start like this. We're just gonna record something because I have love for my brother. I really do. And he was just telling me he gave me 4 years of what you know.
Yeah, so over the last 4 years, I've been piecing together little tidbits of information, and having taken those tidbits, I've sewn
Which is
them.
what happens.
Yeah, I sewn them together, and I just spent 2 hours telling Shamosh everything that I've learned, and it's kind of overwhelming, and I really don't want to overwhelm people with what I know, because there's some sincerity in here that, I mean, you can feel the sincerity, but when you end up looking at the rest of the story, it like,
You need an imagination.
you need an imagination, and
Very
you also
high imagination.
you also need to take it in little bites and think about it. Like, we talked about reincarnation, we talked about the earth being ripped apart, we talked about Tiamat and
Things that we cannot even comprehend, really.
Yeah, exactly. There's things that like, there's no real documentation, there's no evidence.
Even the scriptures hold those things.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
So,
what I'm saying.
but the story that I shared, when you spend the time looking at it, and when you are experiencing your own karmic unwindings, it's an amazing experience, because it really does clean us out. And I appreciate the opportunity to share it with you, because I've never been able to tell anybody except for those 3 over behind.
Absolutely. Where did you get it from? Where did you just
meditation? It was all meditation.
And your research. How researched are you? How well are you?
So,
do you give the Holy Scriptures?
Holy Scriptures are His Word.
It's usually the first thing that everybody gets into through Christianity.
I didn't get in through the Holy Scriptures. The first thing I got in through, you know, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth?
No.
The Emerald Tablets of Thoth are extremely thick. I mean, it's thick as in very hard to understand.
What geography is that?
It comes from Egypt. It's Egyptian.
All right, Egyptian.
So I started off with the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. I went on to Kabbalah with Tony Kosnek. YouTube's got some good Tony Kosnek stuff. Then I got the Hermetica. The Hermetica has a lot of beautiful things in it. And then the thing is like, really the last thing I came across was the Bible. And as I read the Bible, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, I see. And you know, it's like, but then again, there was also the physics. I mean, I was taken out of my job, and I started thinking about physics. And the thing is that all of the physics, that's His secret. The reason science can't get anywhere is because God doesn't want scientists to get anywhere. But
and you know that for sure. He just covers their eyes to it.
He covers their eyes, exactly. So, but I mean, the thing is when you look at the East, and you look at karma, and you look at reincarnation, and then you look at the West, and you look at the science is really, really close, but it just missed a little something.
I think it misses the Elohim element of it.
Yeah.
They take the spiritual part out of it.
Yeah.
Just put physical only proof and see how we can prove it. But still, they see all the proof, and it's weird. They're just spiritually blinded. That's what I'm saying. Our spirits can be controlled by different many things, beautiful things. That's what He's trying to tell us. Number one, He's a jealous Elohim. That's what I'm saying. I was like, oh man, I don't want to give no other deities polytheistic form, because you named about 7 of them. It's a whole family.
It was a whole family, but like I was explaining to you, it's like you go to the MBA, you get the MBA, you go to, you know, and it's not, there's no worship there, and there's no giving credit there, because like what happens is
this is money. Money talks, or your insurance talks. But
the thing is that we don't have another way to call upon them, because that's what they're called in the books. You know, it's like Lamu was a god, and it's like, okay, yeah, we're gonna have to use that word because that's what they called him. But you have to understand that there's no worship, there's no idolization there. It's just that's the word.
And do they pray to these guys?
Well, what ended up happening is the people did start praying to these guys. I mean, like when you go into Rome, and they would pray to the god of Jupiter. Well, no, don't do it that way. That's not how it's supposed to happen.
But they
That's why
and
we
they
fall
loved
short.
their gods too.
They did,
They
yeah.
loved them. They thought that's what they
Athena
went to.
from
Yeah,
Greece, and
absolutely.
but the thing is everybody got lost, and they started praying to the idea of a person, and it's
Yeah,
it's
the
not
saints,
the idea of a
which is
person. Yeah, the saints,
Christianity,
yeah.
which is Catholicism, and there's where I came out of. So
Yeah.
it's like I came out of the Roman Empire myself.
And the thing is that the saints is that when you are a true saint, it's amazing how God speaks through you. But you, as in Saint Michael or Saint Assisi, Saint Assisi, are not. It's hard to talk about it because it's God's mind. If Saint Assisi is a true saint, and Saint Assisi's mind is that the one of God, when Saint Assisi talks to you, who are you hearing? Now, if you're not a saint, you have your own mind, then of course you're not God. But if
Well, the book calls them false prophets.
exactly, yeah.
And look at like all these books. Everybody has so much, can have intelligence. Not everybody, but you can tell how many intelligent people there is because these books are hard to do. It's a very tough task, man. Someone has to be pretty smart to write a book and have it in a library published. But you can tell there's many smart minds, throughout the ages, all these. So it's like, but this book right here is what's held the championship belt of our own civilization right here, right now. Do they obey it? No, that's the problem. This doesn't change, and it hasn't changed. Rome did change its name, edited out their things, but the message is still there. It's the same. I'm just so surprised that the Torah is still here. Like, man, I would have changed that as an empire right away, but it just survived and survived. And it got the Roman, the most strongest empire, and it used it to be under it. And that's what I'm trying to say. It's like all these gods that the strongest Roman Empire had, the Egyptians, and the Egyptians were early too. They were conquered early, and he always said, "I got you out of Egypt. I got you out of Egypt. I got you out of Egypt. I got you out of Egypt. Remember that I got you out of Egypt." And how did he destroy Egypt is to also to show us. And just because it's been time past, now we feel like he doesn't exist anymore or anything. That's why he did it so brutal. But they wanted to go back to Egypt even when they were in the desert. That's kind of what I'm like a Moses trying to gather y'all out of Egypt. The smart ones, everything, you're brilliant. You're not trash. You're like actually pretty dang smart. And well, your profile speaks for itself, and your credentials. And so, but I always know that the Father's mind and his patience and his virtues are above anything. That's how you can speak to masses, but if you're just selfish with one little thing and you're one belief, that's how people get or just narrow-minded to one belief of yourself, humans, like, just me, and not including everybody, then you're just gonna die, and it's gonna die with you. This just changed the heart of like the most strongest empires, the prophets. Every single one in here is a Hebrew. Every single one. We take it out of context. I was like, you need the foundational part of the scriptures to be that. That's why I'm saying Christianity doesn't fit it, because they don't want to be the nation of YeshaYAHu. They don't want the Torah. So I was like, so what kind of religion are you then? They really love the polytheistic any way it goes. I can get to the Father in any way. And it's just like, that's not what the Father was saying though, because this is how he created civilization, with this book and this Torah. And in the worldwide view, it's controlling more than anything. It really does. I mean,
I saw an interesting,
even if it's through the Roman perspective.
I saw an interesting study. What it was is, like you go and you talk to an author and you say, who inspired you? And they're like, oh, I loved reading J.K. Rowling when I was younger, whatever.
Right, there you go.
And what they did was they built a tree of all the books and all the authors that have inspired people throughout the world. The one book that stands like 1,000% more influential than any other book ever is that book.
It is.
Because the thing is that we didn't have books. When we had writing, we would do, here's a receipt, or here is a message. The idea of writing a story, that's the first story that was ever written.
Yeah.
And anybody who's writing a story has had some kind of influence from that one book.
Well, they all agree on the flood. They all agree on the story of the flood. And this is the book that tells you which Elohim did that flood and why he did that flood. And it is like Lord of the Rings back then. It's like, it was like that. It's the only picture I get when I read the Torah and the Old Testament, for real. But
And one of the things that has, like, I've tried my hardest to stitch into my understanding is archaeological evidence. I saw a great podcast with Joe Rogan and Anthony Schock, I think his name is. And you can go all around the world and you see these petroglyphs of, like, it's like a Y and then a Y and then bar. Well, when you have high charged particles in a magnetic field, it makes that shape.
nice.
And the flood absolutely happened. It absolutely happened. Now, did it cover the entire world? Maybe not. But was it nasty? Yes. And the thing is that the coronal mass ejection.
But then again, what was the world back then?
Well, that's the thing is that
It could have been one land, and it probably
the
did
thing
cover.
is that the archaeological evidence is that the end of the ice age happened when this flood happened. If you have a coronal mass ejection, throw billions of tons of solar mass at the Earth, that's going to melt the ice caps, and guess what? You're going to have a lot of rain, and the sea levels are going to rise, and you're going to see these magnetic shapes in the sky, and you are terrified because they look like a man, but really it's just charged particles interacting with a magnetic field. So when you go back and you look at Meltwater Pulse 2, Meltwater Pulse 2 is when Noah happened. Noah happened at the same time as when...
Now, this is a scientific
This is the
explanation?
scientific, yeah. This is
Okay.
archaeological evidence that I'm tying to.
And science is just pretty much the Holy Spirit at work.
Exactly.
Probably.
And that's how he does all this
And
work.
that's how the book wants us to know it foundationally. The
Yeah.
science is awesome, but again, science can make that one man. That's why I'm kind of against emphasizing on Kabbalah or any other study. Is because it makes them individually, like just them. Like they can sell that power. They
That's
don't.
like
I don't know.
that's
They
like
share it with everyone.
the thing
It's
is
hidden. It's hidden knowledge.
It's hidden knowledge, and the Kabbalah, like the most offensive thing you could do is try to profit from your knowledge in Kabbalah.
Which is very human. Most
Well,
of
that
the time.
yeah, but I mean, the thing
And we
is that-
forget the Creator who gave us this thing. We could.
So I think like the experience that I had with Kabbalah was much tamer. Remember I came in through science, so Kabbalah is like it's right in there. It's what the actual message is, and you kind of got to sit down with the message. And like for example, one of the spiritual followings that I like listen to is Osho. I had no idea.
Which one?
Osho, O-S-H-O.
Oh yeah.
He was over in India. I had no idea that he had like illegal arms trade going on. But when I listened to him, what he said sounded pure, and I was able to like pick from it things that helped advance me. So like when you go to Kabbalah, you actually have to listen to what it is that they're saying and like discern what it is that you can take from it. So
Yeah. And then YeshaYAHu, Paul, goes on to speaking if there's any other sefer or any study than this. Angels can speak amazingly with so much knowledge. They brought knowledge to the earth according to the scriptures. And it's from heavenly. So it's like heavenly stuff. It looks good, it feels good too, but again, it's the intent of the heart and the instruction of how we're connected to its instruction. It's Torah, it's instruction. And it is at the highest, The only reason we know is that it's still alive here today. You know what I mean? And it can definitely be broken into different things, and it just loses its power the more it's broken into. More and more it's breaking its power, it's losing, it's getting diluted. We have so many Christian denominations that even a non-denomination becomes a denomination. And it's so specific, but that's why he says in the end it's love. I judge the love. You've been a really great person with a lot of knowledge, a big gift. I always recommend that you go back to the foundations, because trust me, they're so simple, but they're just the most powerful. It's what the world is on top of. It's like the ground. So, we protect the ground, we protect the Torah and itself, and man, put your mind. I gave you the thesis. That's the passport. It's only the passport. And it can lead you to way other things, of course. And we need more men for this, because there's so many avenues now. There's a lot of avenues for that came from the Father. Like, let's get into those avenues instead of different avenues that are trying to get back to where you're at, where you just claimed it, that all the books in the end, everyone's influenced by this book. And so, the evidence is right in front of us as well. The trees are right in front of us. The story of creation, of who he is, and the Son, the creator of all these things that all of these other stories are feeding off of. That's what I mean by holding the championship belt of creation. It's like, or are you going to believe another civilization that is no longer there? That's Babylon. Babylon means confusion. And Egypt means house of bondage. So, these things, if we pick them apart, the root is evil in the end. The root is extraterrestrial. The root is Anunnaki-ish. It's confusion. It's like you don't know. But this tells you this Father loves us so much. He wrote it. It's a big book, but in reality, it's like this one has 87 witnesses. And that's not really a big book once you consider the history of it. It's a small little book.
So, one of the things, if we are invaded by aliens, I know how crazy that sounds, but one thing I know is that they all come from him as well. And it doesn't matter who it is that's in front of me. Anything that gets placed in front of me comes from the Creator. So if there's like an alien invasion, it doesn't matter, because the Creator made that.
You see, brother, you're so rooted, man. You're so rooted.
I get it. Really,
I just want your mind more on this, and it takes time. Like I said, I'm gathering. I'm not gonna forget you. I got your contacts and everything. I love your mind. You got a beautiful mind. You definitely have a big terabyte mind of information. The sciences and all those are important. I don't have knowledge of that. I mean, not that much. But this was an interview itself. I think this was a beautiful interview that we got to explain what happened, because I was explaining that, I don't know if our interview is going to happen, because I can't even promote those other ones. There's just no way. Not right now.
It's way too far out there. It really is.
And it's another, they're going to question me.
Yeah.
And it's my job to be foundational on this. And I'm so sorry. Of course, it sounds great, but like I said, all these books are made from smart people. That means there's a lot of smart people. There's a lot of libraries. I've been to a lot of libraries, and again, this book is the championship. Is the most stolen, the most bought, the most. There's clear evidences of it. You enter the common mind, and it speaks to the poorest. It speaks to the richest. It just puts everyone on the stand. So be a lawyer for us. We're looking for you, brother.
God bless you.
I'm glad I found you. Hallelujah. Thank you for the brothers. Here he is, my brother Tom. Hallelujah, and his family. So we're going to cut on that one, because we got to get on with the day and do a lot of other things. Hallelujah. Proclaim the kingdom on the upper love. Amen.